Have you ever felt like someone is smiling to your face but secretly hoping you fail? Like their words sound polite, but their energy feels cold, distant, almost hostile. You try to explain it to yourself. Maybe you're overthinking. Maybe they're just busy, but deep down something feels off. The truth is, when someone truly hates you, they rarely say it out loud. Instead, they let it leak through their actions. Subtle, small, but consistent signs that chip away at your peace without you even realizing it. In this video, you'll learn how to spot these hidden behaviors before they wear you down. You'll discover the psychological tactics people use when they secretly resent you, disguised as jokes, silence, or concern. And most importantly, you'll learn the Stoic way to protect your mind, guard your energy, and reclaim your peace when someone quietly declares war on your worth. If you're ready to see through the masks and take your power back, stay with me. And don't forget to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom that helps you navigate life with clarity and strength. Number 1. Subtle disrespect revealed. If you've ever walked away from an interaction with someone and felt confused, like you just got hit but can't quite explain how, it's likely you've experienced subtle disrespect. This is the most deceptive and dangerous form of hostility, because it doesn't show up as an obvious attack. It shows up as tiny, almost invisible signals that wear you down over time. And the scariest part? Most people tolerate it for years without realizing the damage it's doing to their confidence, their peace, and their self-worth. Subtle disrespect often begins with small but consistent violations of your dignity. One of the clearest signs is how they treat your time. A person who harbors hidden resentment will show up late, not once, not twice, but regularly. And when they finally arrive, they won't offer a real apology. Instead, they'll brush it off with a joke, shift the blame to traffic, or act like nothing happened. But make no mistake, this isn't carelessness. It's a calculated power move. They're sending you a clear message without saying a word. I don't value you enough to respect your time. But it doesn't stop there. They'll lace their conversations with sarcasm, little barbs dressed up as humor. Comments like, "Oh, look who's finally trying to get their life together," or, "Wow, you actually did something right for once." And when you confront them, they'll smirk and say, "Relax, I'm just playing, you're too sensitive." This is emotional manipulation at its finest. They're testing how much they can insult you while hiding behind the mask of humor. And if you let it slide, they'll push further next time. Because every time you laugh along, you teach them that you're willing to absorb their hidden aggression. They'll also start excluding you. You'll notice you're not being invited to certain meetings, events, or conversations where you should be included. You might hear about decisions being made without your input. You might feel like an outsider in spaces where you once belonged. And when you ask about it, they'll act innocent. "Oh, I thought you were busy. I didn't think you'd be interested." But deep down, you know the truth. This is social rejection disguised as oversight, and it cuts deeper than any argument ever could. And here's the psychological trap. They never give you enough to prove they're against you. Everything they do can be explained away. It's just a joke, it's just bad timing, it's just a misunderstanding. So you start doubting yourself. You start wondering if you're the problem. This is exactly what they want. Because as long as you're questioning yourself, they remain in control. This is where Stoicism offers a lifeline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You don't have to catch them in the act. You don't have to argue or prove your case. What you do have to do is trust your inner sense of peace. Pay attention to how you feel after every interaction. Do you feel lighter or do you feel smaller? Do you feel respected or do you feel dismissed? The body keeps score, even when the mind tries to rationalize it away. When you notice these patterns, stop explaining yourself. Stop seeking closure. You don't need their validation to walk away from their game. Protect your boundaries not by fighting but by disengaging. Pull back your emotional energy. Stop rewarding their behavior with your presence. Create space, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because the longer you stay, the more power you give them to chip away at your spirit. In the end, Stoic power isn't about confrontation. It's about clarity. It's about seeing the truth without letting it poison you. It's about walking away from disrespect quietly, confidently, and without looking back. Number 2, manipulation. Disguised as care. Not every attack looks like an attack. In fact, some of the most dangerous people in your life will never raise their voice, never insult you directly, and never show their true intentions openly. Why? Because they know that if they come at you with obvious hostility, you'll see them for who they are, and you'll walk away. So instead, they wrap their resentment in something far more deceptive, something that looks like care. These are the people who position themselves as your protector. They claim they're just looking out for you. They tell you they only want what's best for you. But if you look closely, their so-called help always seems to make you feel smaller, not stronger. They disguise their manipulation as guidance, and it usually starts when you trust them with your fears. You share your struggles, maybe about your career, your health, your finances, your relationships. You let your guard down because you believe they're safe. But what you don't realize is that they're silently taking notes. They remember every insecurity, every weakness, every doubt you've ever confessed. Not to help you overcome them, but to use them against you when the time is right. They'll say things like, "I'm just worried about you, that's all. You have a history of making bad decisions." Or, "I'm not saying you can't do it, but you do tend to quit when things get hard." Or they'll casually bring up your failures in front of other people, always framed as concern, never as malice. And here's where it gets even darker. They'll position themselves as the only person who really knows you, the only one who truly understands your limits. And if you aren't careful, you'll start to believe them. You'll start second-guessing your dreams. You'll start playing small, because they've convinced you that stepping up is just setting yourself up to fail again. This is how manipulators trap you, not by controlling your actions, but by controlling your self-image. And the more you believe their narrative, the easier it is for them to keep you dependent on their approval. They create the illusion that they're your protector, when in reality, they're your cage. Stoic philosophy exposes this manipulation for what it really is. Epictetus warned us to keep your will in harmony with nature and you will be free. And what is nature in this context? It's your ability to reason for yourself, to trust your own judgment, to define your worth on your own terms, not through someone else's distorted lens. That's why the Stoics practiced restraint when it came to sharing their personal struggles. They knew that not everyone who listens deserves to hold your truth. So you must learn to observe. Watch how people handle your vulnerability. Do they encourage you? Or do they quietly file it away to use as leverage later? The next time someone offers you advice that feels like a backhanded warning, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, does this make me feel stronger or smaller? If it makes you feel smaller, stop explaining, stop defending, and stop giving them access to your inner world. Because someone who truly cares about you will remind you of your power, not keep you trapped in your pain. And the moment you take back ownership of your narrative, their manipulation crumbles. Because their power was never real. It only existed as long as you believed you needed their permission to rise. Number 3, neglect and silent disdain. There's a kind of hatred that doesn't explode. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't argue or confront. It simply withdraws. It starves you of attention, of presence, of recognition, until you start to question if you ever mattered at all. This is the quietest form of emotional violence. Neglect. Neglect doesn't look aggressive on the surface. In fact, that's what makes it so destructive. The person doesn't openly reject you. They don't start fights. They just stop showing up for you. They stop celebrating your wins. They stop offering encouragement. They stop seeing you. You can feel the distance growing between you, but there's nothing concrete to hold on to. No fight, no closure, just empty space, and a sinking feeling that something is dying between you. At first, you might try harder. You might reach out more, trying to reconnect. You might ask questions like, "Is something wrong?" Or, "Are we okay?" But all you get back is vague indifference. "No, everything's fine." Or worse, you get silence. Cold, dismissive silence that leaves you standing there, wondering if you imagined the whole thing. This is not an accident. This is how silent disdain works. It makes you chase them. It makes you feel like you're the problem. It turns you into someone who begs for scraps of attention just to feel seen again. And the more you chase, the more they pull away, until your self-worth is hanging by a thread. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, when someone starts using neglect as a weapon, the worst thing you can do is mirror their behavior by begging, chasing, or trying to prove your worth. That's exactly what they want, to see you unravel. Instead, you reclaim your power by doing the opposite. You stop chasing. You stop asking. You stop giving them the satisfaction of watching you crumble. You meet their silence with self-respect. You create emotional distance not because you're giving up, but because you refuse to be held hostage by someone else's passive aggression. Stoicism teaches us that the only approval we need is our own. Your worth is not measured by who pays attention to you or who withholds it. It's measured by how you carry yourself when no one else is watching. So the next time someone tries to punish you with neglect, remember this. You don't have to fight for a place in someone's life. If you have to beg for their presence, you've already lost their respect. And maybe, so have they. Step back. Reclaim your energy. And show through your calm, through your boundaries, and through your refusal to break, that you are no longer available to be silently destroyed by someone who doesn't have the courage to face you honestly. Number 4, withdrawal and passive attacks. Some people don't destroy you with direct confrontation. They do it by withdrawing just enough to make you feel abandoned, while still staying close enough to wound you in subtle ways. This is where passive-aggressive behavior begins to take over. It's not loud. It's not obvious, but it's perfectly designed to make you doubt yourself while they sit back and avoid accountability. It starts with withdrawal. You'll notice they stop showing you support. They stop offering encouragement. They distance themselves emotionally, but they don't completely disappear. No, they stay close enough to keep watching, close enough to deliver little stabs disguised as casual remarks. This is the emotional game they play, pulling back just enough to make you feel their absence, then reappearing with comments that feel like they came out of nowhere. They might say things like, "Oh, I didn't think you needed my support anymore," or, "Well, I knew you wouldn't take my advice anyway, so I just stayed quiet." Or worse, they'll make cutting remarks about your life or your choices, never with direct malice but with that sharp fake smile that makes it clear their eye, taking pleasure in watching you struggle. This tactic is designed to keep you in a state of emotional confusion. You don't know whether to confront them or to pull away. You wonder if you're imagining it. You question if you are the problem. And that's exactly where they want you, trapped in uncertainty. Because when you're uncertain, you're easier to manipulate. The Stoics called this emotional entrapment. It's when you allow someone else's behavior to dictate your internal state. Seneca warned us about this when he wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And this is how passive-aggressive people work. They never give you something clear to fight against. They stay just ambiguous enough to make you fight yourself instead. So how do you escape this trap? By refusing to participate in their mind games. You stop looking for clarity from them. You stop trying to decode their behavior. You stop reacting. Because every time you do, you're feeding the very cycle they created to control you. Instead, you step into emotional detachment. This doesn't mean you become cold or bitter. It means you stop letting their silence or their passive remarks have power over your peace. You meet their withdrawal with self-sufficiency. You meet their passive attacks with unshakable calm. You recognize that their behavior is a reflection of their own weakness, not yours. And here's the truth. When you stop reacting, when you stop playing their game, they either escalate, revealing their true intentions, or they move on, realizing they can no longer control you. Either way, you win. Because the moment you stop needing them to validate your worth, you free yourself from their silent war. Number 5. Exclusion as a silent weapon. Of all the silent tactics used by people who secretly resent you, exclusion is perhaps the most brutal. Not because it's loud, but because it's invisible. It doesn't hit you with words. It doesn't strike you with open hostility. It simply removes you, slowly, quietly, and consistently, until you begin to wonder if you ever belonged in the first place. It starts with small moments that seem harmless. You notice you weren't invited to a meeting you used to be part of. You find out about a social gathering after it's already happened. You see people forming connections, making plans, sharing laughs, all without you. At first, you tell yourself it's nothing. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they assumed you were busy. You make excuses for them because that's what kind-hearted people do. But over time, the pattern becomes undeniable. You're always the last to know, the last to be invited. Or worse, not invited at all. And when you confront them, when you ask why wasn't I included, they hide behind casual deflection. Oh, it wasn't a big deal. You wouldn't have been interested. It just kind of happened. Make no mistake, this isn't random. This is intentional. People who secretly hate you often lack the courage to confront you directly. So they choose the path of quiet destruction. They erase you socially, one moment at a time, until you begin to erase yourself. Because exclusion, if left unchecked, does something far more damaging than rejection. It makes you start to doubt your own value. You begin to internalize the silence. You wonder if maybe you aren't worth including. You question whether you did something wrong. You start to believe the lie that if you were better, different, more likable, you wouldn't have been left out. And that's where the real damage happens. Not in the exclusion itself, but in the way it convinces you to shrink. This is the trap. And this is where Stoic philosophy becomes your lifeline. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "The approval of others is a luxury, not a necessity. You were not born to beg for acceptance. You were not put on this earth to chase belonging in places that require you to abandon yourself to fit." And the truth is, exclusion reveals far more about them than it does about you. It reveals their fear of your presence, their discomfort with your growth, their need to control who gets to be seen and who gets to be sidelined. It's not about your worth, it's about their insecurity. And when you see it for what it is, you stop playing their game, you stop knocking on closed doors, you stop shrinking to fit into small circles that were never designed to hold your full strength. You let their silence speak for itself, and you walk away with your head high. Because here's what they don't expect. They don't expect you to thrive without them. They don't expect you to build something bigger on your own. They don't expect you to realize that the greatest freedom in life is to no longer seek permission to exist fully, loudly, and unapologetically. So when you feel the sting of exclusion, remember this: every door that closes is a chance to build one that you control. And when you build it, fill it with people who don't make you fight for a place at the table, but who pull out a chair for you, gladly, because they see you as you are. Enough. Number 6. The weight of silent rejection. There's a kind of rejection that leaves no mark on your body, but bruises you deeply in ways words can't explain. It doesn't come through open conflict. It doesn't come through arguments or direct confrontation. It comes through silence, the heavy, suffocating kind that makes you feel like you no longer exist in someone's world. This is what makes silent rejection one of the most painful experiences a human being can endure. At first, it's subtle. They stop replying to your messages as quickly as they used to. They stop initiating conversations. They don't look you in the eye like they once did. And when you speak, their responses feel forced, like they're just trying to get through the interaction, not really connecting with you anymore. You try to ignore it at first. You tell yourself they're busy. You give them the benefit of the doubt because that's what you've always done. But then it becomes more consistent. They start pulling away emotionally. They give you less and less until you're the one doing all the reaching, all the initiating, all the effort. And still, they give nothing back. You're left standing in front of a wall of silence, wondering what you did wrong, wondering why they've stopped choosing you without having the courage to tell you to your face. This kind of rejection is designed to make you crumble on your own. They don't have to explain themselves. They don't have to be the bad guy. They let the silence do the dirty work, and the longer it goes on, the heavier it feels. It starts to erode your sense of worth. It makes you feel like you're not worthy of effort, of attention, of acknowledgement. It makes you feel invisible. And here's the hardest part. They want you to reach the point where you give up, not with anger, but with quiet defeat. They want you to walk away so they can tell themselves, "See, they left, I didn't do anything." It's the perfect manipulation. They get to avoid responsibility while watching you break under the weight of their silent withdrawal. But Stoicism teaches us that silence, no matter how heavy, cannot harm you unless you let it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed," and "You won't feel harmed." Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This isn't about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about recognizing that the real harm happens when you turn their silence into a reflection of your worth, You are not what they fail to acknowledge. You are not the absence of their attention. You are not the emptiness they leave behind. You are something far deeper, far more solid and far more untouchable than their rejection could ever define. The way you reclaim your power is by stopping the chase. You stop trying to force conversations. You stop trying to fill the silence with explanations, apologies, or desperate attempts to win them back. You let the silence stand, and you stand with it. Not as a victim, but as someone who has nothing to prove. Because the truth is, anyone who truly sees your worth will never make you fight for their presence. And anyone who does, let them go. Let them sit in their silence. Let them watch as you walk away, not broken, not bitter, but free. Number 7, the comparison game. If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling smaller than when you entered it, feeling like no matter what you do, it's never enough, you've likely experienced the weapon of comparison. And make no mistake, comparison is a weapon. Psychological strategy people use not to build you up, but to quietly erode your confidence while pretending they're pushing you to improve. It never starts with open criticism. It starts with suggestions. You should try to be more like him. He really knows how to get results. Look at how she handles things, so calm and professional. You could learn a thing or two. I'm just saying, they're ahead of you right now. Maybe you need to step it up. At first it sounds like advice, it sounds like they're just trying to help. But you'll start to notice a pattern. No matter how much progress you make, they never acknowledge it. Instead, they shift the spotlight onto someone else, someone faster, smarter, more successful. You run harder, work harder, sacrifice more, but the finish line keeps moving, because that's the game. A game you can never win. This constant comparison isn't designed to motivate you. It's designed to make you feel like you are permanently less. It's designed to make you question your worth. It makes you stop trusting your instincts. It traps you in a cycle of endless proving, endless striving, endless chasing after someone else's shadow. And the most dangerous part? They make you believe it's your fault. I'm just trying to help you be your best. You should be thankful someone is pushing you. If you can't handle this, maybe you're not ready for success. But let me tell you the truth. Anyone who constantly compares you to others is not trying to help you grow. They're trying to control you. Because when you're always chasing someone else's standard, you're too distracted to realize that you're already enough as you are. You're too busy looking sideways to stand tall in your own lane. This is why the Stoics warned us about comparison. Seneca wrote, "As long as you are looking at what others have and what others do, you will never be at peace with yourself." Comparison pulls your mind away from the only thing you truly control, your own path. It tricks you into measuring your worth with someone else's ruler, and the moment you start doing that, you lose sight of the progress you've already made. So, here's what you must do. You stop chasing their approval. You stop trying to outrun imaginary competitors. You stop believing that your value depends on being better than someone else. Your value comes from being true to yourself, your unique experiences, your unique voice, your unique strengths. No one can replicate your path, and no one can take away the quiet power that comes from knowing who you are, without needing to compare. When they try to drag you into the comparison game again, let them play it alone. Don't respond, don't defend, don't explain. Just smile, nod, and keep walking your path, because you don't have time to compete with people who aren't even running your race. And when you master this, you become untouchable. Not because you're louder, faster, or stronger, but because you finally stopped fighting battles that were never yours to fight. Number 8. Using insecurities as weapons. There's a special kind of cruelty reserved for people who pretend to care about you but secretly resent you. They don't attack your strengths. They don't confront you directly. No, they take a far more personal and devastating route. They go after your deepest insecurities, the private fears you've trusted them with, the wounds you never thought they'd use against you. You see, manipulators and hidden haters don't come for you in areas where you're unshakable. They wait until you're vulnerable. They wait until you let your guard down. Maybe you've opened up about your fear of failure. Maybe you've shared your struggles with your past. Maybe you've admitted you don't feel good enough in certain areas of your life. And in those moments, they act like they're there to comfort you. They nod. They listen. They play the role of the trusted friend, partner, or advisor. But here's what they're really doing: collecting ammunition, quietly storing every weakness you reveal, every self-doubt you confess, every emotional scar you expose. And when the moment is right, when they want to control you, when they want to put you back in your place, they use it against you. It shows up in backhanded comments like, "Well, you've never really been good at that, have you?" Or, "I mean, you've already failed before, so don't get your hopes up too high." Or worse, they bring up the very thing you trusted them with in front of other people, turning your private pain into public humiliation. This is psychological warfare, and the worst part is, it makes you afraid to share yourself with anyone else. You start to build walls. You start to question who you can trust. You start to believe that your vulnerabilities are liabilities, that they're weaknesses you should hide at all costs. And when you start hiding, you start shrinking. You become smaller, quieter, more guarded. And that's exactly what they want. Because a silenced, self-doubting version of you is much easier to control than one who fully owns their flaws and rises anyway. But Stoicism shows us a different way to handle this kind of attack. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." You cannot stop people from trying to use your insecurities against you, but you can stop letting them succeed. How? By doing the one thing they never expect, owning your weaknesses openly without shame. When you fully accept your flaws, when you stop hiding your fears, when you stop needing to defend your imperfections, you take away their weapon. What can they use against you when you've already claimed every part of yourself without apology? That's the power of self-acceptance. It turns your so-called weaknesses into armor. It transforms your pain into strength. It makes you unplayable. Because the person who is not afraid to be seen fully, both their light and their darkness, is the person no one can manipulate. So the next time someone throws your insecurities back in your face, don't defend. Don't explain. Don't shrink. Stand tall. Own it. And remember, anyone who tries to make you feel small for being human has already lost the battle, because you've risen above the need for their approval. Number 9. The power of silence as rejection. There is no rejection more cruel than the one that leaves you with nothing to hold on to. No words, no confrontation, no explanation. Just emptiness, just absence, just silence. And that is what makes this tactic so effective. Because when someone goes silent on you, not for peace but as a weapon, it forces you to carry all the weight of the relationship on your shoulders. It makes you the one left standing in confusion while they disappear into the safety of avoidance. At first, you don't even recognize it as rejection. You tell yourself they're probably busy. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe they just need space. So you wait. You give them time. You make excuses. But the silence stretches longer. It deepens. It turns into days, then weeks, then months. And every moment that passes without closure feels like another silent confirmation that you've been left behind, erased without dignity, discarded without the decency of explanation. And that's the real cruelty of this tactic. Because it doesn't give you the dignity of a clear ending. It traps you in limbo, constantly questioning yourself. You wonder what you did wrong. You replay every conversation, every interaction, looking for clues. You start to internalize their absence as evidence of your unworthiness. And so you reach out, again and again. You try to fix what they refuse to explain. You offer apologies for things you're not even sure you did. You pour out your heart into the void, hoping that maybe this time they'll respond. But they don't. Or worse, they respond with cold, short, dismissive replies that feel more like punishment than conversation. And here's where the power dynamic shifts entirely, because now you're chasing. You're the one doing all the emotional labor. You're trying to breathe life back into something they've already chosen to let die. And that is exactly what they want. Their silence isn't just avoidance, it's control, it's emotional manipulation. It puts you in the position of proving your worth to someone who isn't even willing to meet you halfway. This is why Stoicism is such a powerful defense, because it teaches you that you don't need closure from others to reclaim your peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You can't control their silence. You can't force them to explain. But you can decide that you are done begging for what should have been offered freely: respect, honesty, and effort. Here's the truth most people never realize. Silence is already an answer. If someone truly values you, you won't have to pull words out of them. You won't have to beg for acknowledgement. You won't have to carry the weight of the relationship alone. People who respect you show it, not just when things are easy, but especially when they're hard. So if they choose silence, let them have it. Let them sit in it. Don't break yourself trying to fill the space they created. Because when you stop chasing, when you stop explaining, when you stop giving them permission to keep you in emotional limbo, you set yourself free. And that freedom is worth more than any forced conversation, any fake apology, or any temporary attention you have to beg for. You don't need to convince someone to care. You don't need to drag words out of a silent mouth. You need to walk away with your dignity intact, knowing you showed up fully, and they chose absence. And when you do, you'll realize their silence didn't reject you. It revealed them. Number 10. Erosion through repeated wounds. Hatred doesn't always arrive as a single catastrophic event. More often it arrives in waves, small, seemingly harmless behaviors that stack up over time, like drops of water slowly carving a canyon into solid rock. This kind of emotional erosion happens quietly, consistently, until one day you wake up and realize that parts of you have been worn down without you even noticing. This is what makes repeated small wounds so dangerous. You don't see the damage happening all at once. You tolerate the little jabs. You brush off the sarcastic comments. You tell yourself, it's not worth making a big deal out of it. You let the lateness slide. You ignore the subtle exclusion. You swallow the passive-aggressive remarks. One by one, these tiny injuries feel manageable. Too small to confront, too insignificant to fight over. But they stack, they accumulate. And over time, they reshape the way you see yourself. You begin to expect less from people. You lower your standards. You start believing that maybe you're too sensitive, too needy, too difficult. You start convincing yourself that you should be grateful for any scraps of attention or respect they give you. Without realizing it, you start shrinking. You stop speaking up. You stop defending your worth. You accept treatment you once would have walked away from without hesitation. This slow erosion is the most dangerous form of hatred because it convinces you that you're the one who's changing for the better. You believe you're becoming more tolerant, more mature, more understanding. But in reality, you're just becoming more numb. You're adapting to mistreatment. You're training yourself to survive in an environment that's quietly killing your spirit. Marcus Aurelius warned of this danger when he wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you allow these small wounds to go unchecked, they begin to color your entire self-image. You start to see yourself through the lens of their disrespect, slowly losing sight of your strength, your dignity, your value. So what do? You stop tolerating the small cuts. You stop explaining them away. You start treating every violation of your worth, no matter how small, as a sign that demands your attention. Because what starts small rarely stays small, and what you allow will continue. You don't have to explode. You don't have to create drama. You simply have to notice. You have to name what's happening. And you have to act. Whether that means setting boundaries, having hard conversations, or walking away entirely. Because the truth is, you don't lose your peace all at once. You lose it in pieces. And the only way to reclaim it is to stop the erosion before it turns you into someone you don't even recognize anymore. So the next time you feel those tiny wounds stacking up, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, if I continue to accept this, who will I become? And then choose differently. Choose to protect yourself, not with anger, but with clarity. Not with revenge, but with distance. Not with weakness, but with strength. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who endure endless small wounds. They're the ones who see them early and refuse to let them continue. The truth is, hatred rarely shows up screaming in your face. It shows up quietly, through silence, sarcasm, exclusion, and emotional games. And every time you ignore those signs, you give them permission to continue. But you don't have to. Keep playing their game. Stoic wisdom reminds us that your peace is yours to protect. You can't control how they treat you, but you can control how long you let it affect you. The moment you stop chasing, stop explaining, and start choosing yourself, you take back your power. So if this helped you see the truth more clearly, make sure to subscribe. I'll be here every week helping you sharpen your mind, protect your energy, and walk through life with unshakable strength.